All right. Red Solo Cup. I fill you up. Let's have a party. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, to my right today, we have Benjamin B.
What's happening, everybody?
And we also have a lovely lady by the name of
Tara.
Tara. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Don't forget, talk into that microphone. You a little nervous?
A little bit.
Okay.
This is odd.
What's odd about it?
I'm used to having an audience and being able to play off that if I share.
Well, good news. You do have an audience. They're just not in front of you. All right. First things first. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Real Recovery Talk. If, in fact, you find this content helpful, you can always share it with somebody. And if you want to reach out to either myself or Ben, you can obviously email us, tom@realrecoverytalk.com, and
ben@realrecoverytalk.com.
there you go. And ultimately, what we want to help you do is...
Turn your mess into a...
You messed it up.
No, I didn't, dude. What do you mean?
Turn your mess into your message. You said turn your mess into a...
Oh, okay. How about the message?
Has
Whatever.
I twitched a little bit.
Whatever helps you see. All right. So as you can see, we have Tara here. Tara has opted to come on to the show and really just share with us her experience with sobriety and the things that it has had to offer her over the years. And full transparency, I told Ben, we got to get some podcasts lined up here because I'm going to be off the grid for about 10 days. And we're trying to get, some stuff lined up over the next few days. And Tara had reached out to Ben and asked him his thoughts about a specific lifting belt. And here we are. So
Begrudgingly.
What I know about Tara is very limited, but I do know just from hearing from others, super solid in your sobriety. You help a lot of women. And I think we need to gear this more towards women that are struggling with sobriety. Maybe they don't know what to do. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know where to turn. And Ben, obviously, you know Tara very well, so we'll just kind of take it organically and see where things go. All right.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, Tara, let's just open right up. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, a little bit of your backstory, not a whole lot. We are solution focused here at Real Recovery
Love it.
Talk, and so we'll get into that, but go ahead.
Turning 33 here shortly. Not too excited about that, but my first round in recovery was at 20 years old. I actually had 30 days clean on my 21st birthday. And when I came in, I was a scared little girl. And at points today, I still can be that scared little girl. I made it in the rooms for about 10 years. And the only way I did that, if we're gearing it towards women, was that I found a solid core group of women. Because what I've learned is that the men will pat your ass and the women will save your ass every single time. In the beginning, I had some knowledge of, recovery and 12 steps and all those things because my mom had been court mandated. And for me, that was home. I was 7 years old running around the rooms of recovery, and that was my safe space. And then as I got older, you think, man, this kid's heard it all. I've sat in meetings. I know all the wrong things to do. And then I ended up being an addict myself. So I had to learn how to trust women. And I didn't know how. So that was a process.
So just going back a little bit, you've been directly or indirectly involved in a 12-step program since you were 7 years old.
Correct.
And you said that it had worked for 10 years. Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
It had worked. There's some things that are suggested when we get clean, right? It's pretty simple. Go to meetings, find a sponsor, work steps, help others, or be of service. And so that's what I did. Like it's all there. It's all black and white, make 90 meetings in 90 days is one of the biggest suggestions that I got when I first got clean. And I did that.
What was how old were you when you got clean?
20.
20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so you stayed clean till?
Right around 28, 29, somewhere in there.
During that process, well, I don't even want to get there yet because I don't want to bypass. Tell us a little bit about your addiction, like where you were, because I guarantee you there's people out there that are listening right now that aren't clean. And so from somebody that is clean and sober now, you can look back and reflect at that 20-year-old girl. Where were you at that point in your life, and what steps did you need to take to, and I don't know if you went into treatment or if you just waltzed into a 12-step program. Like, what was that journey like for you the first time you really decided to get clean?
It sounds silly, but it was like this. Well, first and foremost, I used with my mom. My mom is an addict, and it's self-admitted for her, so it's not like I'm breaking her anonymity. But every drug that I had ever tried and every route of administration that I ever tried for the first time was with my mom. And so towards the bitter ends, it was a flashlight either in my mouth or on my head, on my hands and knees, looking for something in the carpet, with track marks up and down my arms. I was 80 pounds soaking wet, and I had no light in my eyes. I hated the person that I was. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, and was working as a dancer to feed my addiction. So I had an ex that I had been with for a long time that had gotten clean. That's why we split. I called him, and he said, I just said, I hate myself. I don't know what to do. And he said, do you have shoes on your feet? I said, yeah. He goes, do you have a roof over your head? I said, yeah. He goes, do you have a bed to sleep in? I said, yeah. What are you getting at? He goes, you have a lot more to be grateful for than you realize. And you have a lot more than what a lot of people come in here with. So when you're ready, call me. And I did. I had an 8x4 mirror in my room, and I don't know about anybody else, but I felt most comfortable on a pile of dirty clothes in my closet, looking at myself, and not eye to eye level, but just being in that mirror. And I looked up and was like, damn, how am I going to get loaded every day for the rest of my life? And something clicked. Why am I thinking about using every single day for the rest of my life? So I made the phone call. Went to a meeting.
And that was at 21 or 20.
20.
And you stayed clean for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
9 years.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
What was that process like? And Ben, feel free to, I don't want to take the whole episode here. Feel free to jump in.
I'm ruminating up here.
The process. Well, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get well and wonderful overnight. I came in. We talk about in the rooms, like if you come in a liar, cheat, and a thief, and you remove the drugs, you're still going to be a liar, cheat, and a thief. So when I first came in, that's who I was. And like I said before, I was a scared little girl. I was attention seeking. I caused wreckage. I was a mess. I was a hurricane. And when I had a few years, I had some members with some time say, man, I never thought you were going to make it. I was all over the place. And people still loved me.
What was your drug of choice?
More and preferably yours.
At the time, though, if you had to pick one, what would you say?
Hang on a second. I don't want to bypass that. What was your drug of choice?
More and preferably yours.
So anything.
You put it in front of me and it's free? I don't know anybody that's going to turn down free stuff.
I'm with you there.
Well, I would have. But I was an alcoholic, and I so
Oh, you were better then.
I was better then.
You should have hung out with us. We could have changed you.
Put it to you this way. When I called my mom the first night I wanted to go to a meeting because I knew where some had been from back in the day. She goes, man, I just thought we could go, do some G and look at Christmas lights. That was my mom's thought process. Methamphetamine, opiates, alcohol, benzos. It really didn't matter. I didn't like Coke just simply because it was too quick and cheap and I wanted something that was going to last me.
So you did anything. And yeah.
Kind of the reason I was asking is I was wondering, like, you said you made that phone call, went to a meeting, you detoxed yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
At the time, I was most exclusively in a relationship with methamphetamine. And so...
That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
I had a feeling.
I slept. I got a carton of Marlboro Reds and we smoked in the house and, 24 case of Coca-Cola and a lot of peanut butter and jelly. And I just locked my ass in a room.
You kicked it yourself.
Yeah. It was just a lot of sleep, really. That one was the easy one.
Yeah. And so over 8-9 years, I mean, obviously it was a process. There was a growing process. You learned a lot about yourself. Did you help other women in that 8 years?
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
I would like to think so. I did sponsor women and those women are still some of the most important women. I get to watch their lives unfold on social media and through the connection that I still have with them. So I would really like to think so, but I really also don't like to take credit for that.
Yeah.
You said what was that quote you did? I've heard it before. The guys will pat you on the ass and what?
Yeah.
What was it?
The guys will pat you on the ass and the women will save your ass.
Yeah. I hear this all the time with our female clients, especially. They come in, and this drives me crazy. They come in here and they're like, well, I get along better with men. I don't trust women. This, that, and I'm like,
because you don't trust yourself.
And of course you get along better with men.
Of course you do, because they will give you what you want.
Mm-hmm. That part drives me crazy. Mm-hmm. Like when it comes to women, and men too. Like I need good, strong men in my life. But I will tell you that's one of the biggest rebuttals that we get from women in the program. They're like, oh, I got to live with other women in a housing, etc. And they're like, oh, I don't get along with them. They don't even tend to give it a chance. They have zero willingness,
of course,
to try and get to know other women. And I think so much of that ties into, like you were saying, their addiction. Like, let's call it what it is. Like, not to be whatever, but if I was a woman, I'd be in trouble out there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can find a guy that will take care of you, so to speak.
Let's flip it on the other end.
Yeah.
Most of the women are used to finding a man that they can take care of because then it distracts them from focusing on themselves. Every guy in the rooms thinks like, oh, they just want somebody that's going to take care of them. Wait, time out. No, most women want a fixer-upper and a project because then we don't have to look inwards.
Would you say that's more when you're sober?
I think it's both.
Both?
I think it's both. When I was out there ripping and running, like I didn't go for the guy that had it all together. I didn't feel good enough.
Touche. I'm with you there. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I didn't feel like I amounted because there was men that were interested, that were clean, that were like good men when I was using.
Yeah.
I just didn't have. I felt like I was out of my league.
I think it's worth mentioning too, just for the podcast sake. Tom, myself, a lot of the people we have on here are by default AA people, just throwing it out there. Tara is very much an NA person. We jokingly throw stones at each other all the time in fun. Like, and don't get me wrong, because we talk about this on the podcast all the time. We're like about all paths. Like, whatever you do, we say do it. Like, if you want to do smart recovery, NA, AA, CA, celebrate recovery, whatever, like, go all the way. Don't just, stick your toe in it and be like, oh, it didn't work. You know, I'm a firm believer, like whatever program you choose, so long as you follow through on absolutely every suggestion that program gives, you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
But I just want to throw that out there for our listeners because
Killing me.
we
That's
talk
my
about-
anonymity. I'm like, I just read my 10th tradition or my 9th tradition, and it's like, this is a podcast, and I don't know where that falls because literature was all made back in the day before all this stuff was invented. So I still kind of go, is this okay? Am I in the right, you know what I mean? Am I doing the right thing to identify as a member of one specific program or the other rather than saying I'm a member of a 12-step fellowship?
No, I get that. Yeah, we talk about this all the time because, like you were just saying, but there's in a lot of like the Facebook groups I follow, part of recovery, that, you know, founder of AA, Bill W. A lot of people are like, Bill W. would be turning in his grave if he knew people were not getting on YouTube, not using social media to spread the message. Don't get me wrong, it is tough because you look at the traditions about anonymity and stuff, and really anonymity, the way that I understand it, I've heard all kinds of versions, people will go back and forth on it, but it's actually to protect somebody's ego. Like we don't need ego in 12-step programs in recovery, like, because when somebody goes up on a pedestal, that's a really high spot to fall down from, you know. So, oh, you're raising your hand to that. What happened there?
Fast forward into my recovery journey, I met a guy, right? Because we do that. And he was like everything that I didn't want. But he was pretty to look at. So,
How much clean time do you have at this point?
well, I'd had many failed relationships by that point. Let me just point that out. They say not to get in a relationship for the first year, but in the program that I work, it's really more about not making any major decisions for the first year.
Yeah.
So I had many failed, and at this time I had about 3.5 years.
Okay.
And I got a message on social media, and I was fully intent with being single. And I just, again, he was pretty to look at. So like, I'm human, right? And he kept chasing. I wouldn't even give him my phone number for 6 weeks. So we actually dated for once, which, like, for me, in my head, I see somebody walk into a meeting, especially if they're somebody I haven't seen, and it's like fresh meat. Even still to this day, happily married. I will say that. My brain is screwed up. Like, I don't think like normal people. So I see him walk in, and I'm like, great. And we start messaging, and finally go out on our first date, and I get in the car with this guy, and I had seen him around the rooms. Okay, let me just put that out there. We get in the truck, and I'm asking him about himself, and I'm like, so how much time do you have? And he goes, 54 days. And my first thought was, holy shit. He goes, is that a problem? I said, yeah, it's a huge problem. You have no idea who you are. Fast forward about 14 months, we're doing the deal. Everything's going well. We're both working steps. We're both sponsoring. We're both doing all the things, right? And he gets hurt at work. He was crushed by a 2,000-pound panel of steel. And everything from a traumatic brain injury to, you know, the whole right side of his body being crushed. He was not supposed to live. And if he was supposed to live, he wasn't ever supposed to walk again. So, like, we didn't post anything for a while. But when we did, we wanted to make sure that all of our immediate people knew where we were and what had happened. And there was not a day that went by that there wasn't somebody from the rooms at the hospital, or 10. It was sometimes a lot. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't post for ego or pride or attention or likes. It was really just to update those that had been wondering. And it became this story. It became this this thing where we'd go to conventions and people would be, oh my God, we've watched your recovery. We've watched him get better. We've watched him learn how to walk. We've watched you stay by his side. And we're like, who are you? And so all of a sudden we were celebrities in this anonymous program. And that pedestal became higher. And that pedestal became higher. And it wasn't so much about anybody else putting us up there. We put ourselves up there. So when we started to struggle, we felt like we were backed in. and couldn't actually ask for help. And that ego piece comes into play.
That's interesting. Interesting point of view. I would have never thought of that, but I mean, hey, that's why you're here. So, staying on track, my audio is not, I can cut all this out.
I want to know what that relapse looks like.
Hang on.
Hold on.
I'm keeping that in.
Still an addict.
Oh, through and through.
All right, go ahead. Say what you said.
I'd like to know what that relapse looked like. You know, were both of you using prior to him being hospitalized? It was after that.
God, no. Yeah, no.
Okay.
So he was Superman, Iron Man, whatever you want to call him. He took his pain medication, and this is something that's taboo in the rooms. But it was from the doctor's perspective necessary. And we listen to people like when we get clean that know more than us, right? So they said, you're going to be on something for the rest of your life. And so he took his pain meds as prescribed or less than for 4 years after that accident, until he didn't. So it comes down to your body builds an immunity. And so I remember the exact moment in my brain when something switched. We were at Disney, and we had went with friends and family. Bless you. And they all were on different substances, like normal people would, like to have a drink, right? And I'm in Haunted Mansion, and we're in those semicircle, chair ride things. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, wait, I'm the only one who's not on anything right now. Well, this sucks. And then I was like, whoa. And I said it out loud. From that point forward, it was still years before I ended up relapsing myself. And it started with a pain medication for my knee. I had an old cheer injury. I cheered for 13 years and was supposed to have surgery on it when I was young. And I was just stubborn and didn't want to give up my cheer career. So went back into the doctor one more time. My sponsor said, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Like, we have options today. So go get it checked out. And of course, I had put it off for a long time because I was afraid they were going to throw pain meds at me. And they did. And so I went for the lowest thing that I could, which was Tramadol. And I took that as prescribed. Until my insurance ran out. And then I procured some from a friend. And even though I still took that as prescribed, that was not my name on the prescription bottle. I still took the same medication. It was still as prescribed. It was just that I couldn't get into the doctor. But in my head, that's all BS. My name was not on that prescription.
So a lot of people, too, it's funny you bring up Tramadol. All these random rabbit trails always come up when we're doing this. Little fun fact, a lot of people, kind of like what just happened, Tramadol is supposed to be on the low end of the spectrum for potency,
tell that to the detox,
so to speak. But little fun fact, I don't know how I know this, but at one point in the early 2000s, Tramadol was the #1 abused drug in the Gaza Strip. Just throwing that out there.
Where the hell is the Gaza Strip?
Yeah.
Like by Israel and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Middle East.
Yeah, I don't know how you know that, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know
You
how
can
I know
always
that.
count on Ben to come in with these stats that.
I think probably someone was trying to convince me, like a client, like, oh, Tramadol's okay. But at the end of the day, it kicks in your opioid receptors too.
And
and it
it's
just takes
now
that
controlled.
little bit.
Now it's controlled as of, 2015.
And doctors even, I hear that all the time because I've been in similar situations where like, oh, we're going to give you Tramadol. It's not an opiate. It's an opioid. Like it's still
a catalyst, yeah.
It's going to hit my receptors in the same manner. And a guy like me set me off to the races for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to bring that up because maybe there's some listeners on here that they hear about Tramadol. And I always say be wary of doctors as well because let's just call it what it is. They are not educated on addiction. And Tom and I, we have firsthand experience with this where we were going down to JFK for a number of months where we go, every other week and talk to the resident doctors of JFK Hospital. And to find out, and they self-admittedly, I really appreciated them being honest about it, but they admitted, like, we know almost nothing about addiction. They were blown away by the information that we gave them, and here they are, like, prescribing over and over and over again and helping overdosed addicts, et cetera, but they're just not trained in it, and they have no idea what it could do to somebody like us.
And they practice medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a practice every day. Trial and error with humans.
Yeah.
Well, now is a good time for us to make the disclaimer that we are not doctors either and do not take any of this as medical advice. And this is just simply for your own entertainment purposes.
Yeah, that is true, but I'm pretty sure I could probably write like the best Suboxone taper on the face of the planet. That's street knowledge, Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, that's street pharmacist knowledge, man. I tell ya.
Well, listen, for the sake of time, I want to get into, okay, so you had substantial clean time, but then a relapse came.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through that. And I want to get to where you are today, but before we get there, tell us a little bit about the relapse. What started? You had surgery on your knee, and then how quick did it progress? And then we'll get to the rest.
Didn't actually do surgery, did injections. And it progressed slowly for me. It was more, I was in an industry where everybody drinks. So I spoke at this big conference, like I was doing magazine articles and I was traveling all over the country and I was traveling and training for aesthetics at this point. By this point, I had been a medical assistant. I'd been an insurance agent. I had been a car salesman. I had lived all these lives that recovery had afforded me. And so when I got to this, where I was actually running my own business, I did this huge presentation, and every day the hotel that we presented at would come around with Prosecco, champagne. And I'm like, maybe. And I've been thinking about it for about 2 years. Took a sip and had an empty stomach and went, okay, this is why I don't do this, because I was buzzed off of, I'm no joke, one sip. And it progressed slowly for me. It was like 1 drink a week or 1 beer a night. And then my husband had multiple relapses, and we say this in the rooms all the time. Like, you go to the barbershop enough times, you're going to end up getting a haircut.
Can I just tie this together for the audience? Because like you kind of skipped around it. I'm just going to go ahead and blow it all out of the water.
Go. Do it.
So I'm just going to blow it all out of the water. Tara's been kind of dancing around it. I just so happen to be friends with her and her husband, Adam. And the thing is that guy that got crushed on that construction site is her husband. That's who she's referring to. Just kind of
I didn't know this.
See, that's why I wanted to tie it all together.
Okay.
So that relationship, they're together clean. Because I haven't heard your full story either, but just I'm piecing it together now. Yeah. So hopefully piecing it together for them too. You guys are together, you're clean, he gets in the accident, he's taking his meds for 4 years, as prescribed, you do the tramadol, now you're having a drink.
By that point, he had already relapsed. I think it was one good time. He was working out of town and the pain meds stopped working, so he started taking more. And we do what we do.
So this was the guy that got into his car and had 54 days.
Yes, we are still together. It will be 10 years in August through the trenches.
Your phone.
I'm good.
Just turn the vibration off.
No.
There we go.
Got a kid. Oh, I have a kid too. There's that
part.
During that time after his accident. And let me just say, like, learning to... watching him learn how to walk again. We got to go to the Rehab Institute of Chicago. He got the best physical therapy in the world. Like, I got to go on that journey with him. But the biggest thing about that was that they said, you'll never have kids. And so we were like, okay, we will adopt a kid that is from a broken home, hopefully from addiction, if we get the choice. And we will just love them up. And that was our hope. And, lo and behold, after 3 specialists later, we end up with this beautiful baby girl out of the blue. And after
through adoption or through pregnancy?
Through pregnancy.
Nice.
And I think that had a lot to do with my relapse as well. Like the trauma, I almost died having her. She almost died. It was a long couple of days. But he was still clean and on pain meds, which doesn't sound right now, but like he was still taking them as prescribed at the time when we had her. And then he had a neck surgery.
From the accident?
One more surgery. He had multiple. So he had one more.
He broke every vertebrae in his back, right? Just about.
T1 through 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then slip discs and, lamina fractures, compounded of his tib fib, shattered his knee, shattered his ankle. Like the dude was, he was pulp by the time he got to the hospital.
I just wanted to point that out because a lot of times we get clients in here that are like, oh, one time, a box fell on my toe and now I'm disabled for the rest of my life.
I need pain
gotta take
meds.
oxys. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a man that literally got crushed and should be dead. Mm-hmm. I've seen the stuff on Facebook, him learning to walk again and whatnot. Yeah. I work out with him today, which I'll touch on that stuff later because with all that going on and the way he lives his life now and the way that Tara lives her life, like, there's probably a good chance we don't need pain meds, so to speak. But I digress. Well, we can get into that later. Continue.
So he had relapsed a couple times by then. After we had our daughter, she was about 9 months old. And he found some heroin because he ran out of his pain meds. And we do what we do. And so it was a really hard decision for me to, hand him his daughter and say goodbye to her for now. Because I will take her as far away from you as humanly possible, and not because I'm spiteful, but because I won't have what was done to her or done to me, done to her. So he entered recovery for the first time, and that was our first introduction to Suboxone therapy.
Oh, the story gets deep.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And I think the trauma of the multiple relapses, not taking care of myself, taking care of her, and that's one thing that women do pretty frequently in recovery or not. We're so focused on the family unit and taking care of everybody else that we don't worry about us. And that's what happened for me, is I was taking care of everybody else and my recovery slipped.
So I don't want to spend a lot of time on the Suboxone. Touch on that, but I think where your message is strongest, granted, this whole thing has been very impactful. You're very solution focused, and I want to get there. So touch a little bit on the Suboxone and what it did to you, but then I want to go to what you do today and how you impact women today.
There's really not much to tell. I'm originally from California, and so NA in California is very much, and if you're on Suboxone therapy and that's working for you, I just have to say, like, good for you, and keep doing what's working for you as long as you are living a life that is worth living and you don't feel trapped by that. If you do, there's other options, and you don't have to stay on it forever. That was the plan for him, was to stay on it forever. They went in with 32 milligrams right off the bat, just whap, and said, this is what you're going to be on. And it wasn't going to work from the very beginning because of where we come from. Suboxone is considered diet heroin. Or
that's good. I've never heard that before.
Like diet soda?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just the light version. It's something.
These Cali folk.
It's just for us, like, anything that blocks your connection with your higher power, anything that controls you to the point where you're going to have to detox off of it, isn't considered clean where we come from. So, that didn't work. Couple relapses down the line. And, at that point, my disease had graduated from Tramadol to half a Norco when I was in pain. And then, here we go with more and more and more pain meds until my husband came home with this little blue pill. I had no idea what it was. As a matter of fact, I am that good little addict that goes on Pill Identifier and looks up the markings and says, no, this isn't anything other than what it's supposed to be. It's fine. They came from Mexico. It's good. It's just the pharmacy is different down there, right? And the rationalization and justification of that. And, he had ended up getting a settlement from his work accident. And that's a huge part of both of our story, is that, you know, this money that was supposed to set us up for the rest of our lives, we were spending 10 grand a week on our own habits. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That little blue pill was fentanyl, I'm assuming.
mm-hmm.
Looks like a roxycodone, but it comes from Mexico, therefore it's fentanyl.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there for our listeners.
Yeah. So if you're getting something and it's not straight from the pharmacy, 9 times out of 10, I'd say 9.5 times out of 10, it's going to be fentanyl. And so here I was with this beautiful baby girl and this husband and me. And my thought was, I can't leave my daughter with him. I don't want to say I still function, but like I still had my daughter to take care of. He doesn't use that way. And so my biggest fear was what's going to happen to her if I end up going into treatment. Because at this point, I know that there's going to be an actual detox process. And so thank God for friends and family, because being a part of the program for so long, like we stopped answering. And mind you, this has been in the beginning of COVID. So when we stopped answering, everybody was afraid to come near us because it's California and all the fear mongering and things that were happening. And all of a sudden I hear a couple Harleys and some cars pull up out front, but I can't see anybody. And then there's a knock at the door and there's 5 of our friends. Welfare check. So at that point I knew it was time. It didn't last long.
Wait, hang on. You said 5 of your friends?
Yeah.
Were like, pardon my ignorance, were they friends or were they police?
They were friends.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah.
said welfare check, and I'm like, maybe they were like police officers on Harley.
No, but they
Okay.
might as well have been, because they walked in and they were looking around and they were like, okay. They didn't, obviously they cared about us, but they were more concerned for our daughter.
Gotcha. Okay.
I knew I needed help. I was miserable from the moment it started. I knew that there was a different way of life. I had grown up in the rooms. And as soon as I started using that fear, resentment, shame, guilt, all those things ran my life. I wasn't me anymore. I wasn't free anymore. I was this shell of a person that was constantly worried about what was going to happen to everyone around me and myself. So I told my husband, either get help and I'll stay home with her and clean out the house, or you can go. And I had those same people that came to show up at my house to check on her step in and stayed with my daughter while I went to treatment.
You both went, or
He went first within 48 hours. Well, they gave him a sub within like 12 hours. And with fentanyl, if you know anything about fentanyl, you don't take a Suboxone within 12 hours. You go into what's called precipitated withdrawal, and it's like withdrawal on steroids. And so within 48 hours, he had the Connect drop something off to the detox. So he came home still using, and I knew that. But I had to do what I needed to do, and I had to trust and have faith that the people that were there were going to take care of my daughter.
yeah.
And they did.
So you went to treatment. You got, cleaned up again. Where are you now, in terms of your sobriety? Because you have. So you got clean when again?
October 7th of 2020.
October. So you're just over 2 years, 3 years, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
How's things different now?
In every way. The only consistent thing has been exactly what I said in the beginning, what's suggested. Go to meetings, find a sponsor, work steps, help others. That's the only consistent. Everything else has been different. There's a part in the basic text for NA literature, and it says, sometimes relapse can be the jarring experience that brings about a more rigorous application of the program. Relapse is not a part of everyone's recovery, but it is a part of my story. And I couldn't understand that. I was a white chip wonder when I first got clean at 20. And I couldn't understand how these people had all these things and would give them up so freely. Because people say, I lost my clean time. No, dude, you didn't lose shit. It's not your phone or car keys. You made a decision. You chose. And I couldn't understand. Today, I do. And that gives me some empathy, especially for the women and especially for the moms. Because I looked at women that used while they had children and I judged them, because that's what happened for me. Was my mom was an addict. So how could you have this beautiful baby or multiple beautiful babies and use again?
I did the same thing. It's those lines I won't cross because of my morals and my philosophies. And then I used to look down on mothers that use, and lo and behold, we have Weston, and what are we doing? We weren't home from the hospital. I think it might have been 30 minutes, and we're calling the dope dealer, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like that experience makes me uniquely qualified to help that next woman, because I couldn't get with it before.
And that's what I want to know now is like, what's your, I don't know, not philosophy, but like, how do you feel like you impact women today, in comparison to maybe your previous?
We go back to California every once in a while, and I have women that come to me and say, you know, you were such a light when I first came in. You were the one that knew everyone. You were the social butterfly. You were what I wanted to be like. You were what I aspired to be. And like I said, that Celebrity and Anonymous program, today I get to help women without any type of ego involved. And I get to just be another recovering addict. It took moving from California to Florida to struggle like everybody else struggles, to humble myself, and to be able to help women without boundaries today. It's different to be not looked up to, just looked at. It helps me stay grounded so that I can be more available for those women.
That's pretty interesting, Ben. And I just through this conversation, I feel like we're not like up on this pedestal, but like we kind of are.
Yeah, no, it's a fine line to walk, man. And for me, working in treatment, I get a paycheck, and I see a lot of people get sober, go start working in treatment. And this is why I keep myself so involved with AA, working with sponsees. And the big book talks about we have to give freely of ourselves. You know, a price has to be paid, destruction of selfishness and self-centeredness. Like, don't get me wrong, I could take everything that I do in Alcoholics Anonymous and bring it here and try to spread that message. However, for my recovery, this technically doesn't make any deposits other than the paycheck.
It's not based in goodwill.
And as an addict, as an alcoholic and addict, I need a spiritual paycheck as well. And you know, the day that paycheck becomes more important for me in this field than the actual service work, is the day that I need to leave this field. You know, I had an awesome boss. Let me touch on this real quick. I had about 3 years clean, and we, you know, at the treatment center I worked for, it was super corporate, a really big place, and you're not supposed to give clients your phone numbers, etc. And, you know, you couldn't sponsor anybody. And there was this guy there, and it all came full circle. I won't jump into it now, but who became a huge part of my life, hence why I have Kai in my life, if you've heard my story, with the adoption and stuff. But that gentleman, for some reason, you know, him and I were connected. He left the treatment center I was at. He asked me to sponsor him, and I said yes. And I went to my boss, and I told him myself. I said, I did something. I want to let you know I broke the rules of this treatment center, and I'm sponsoring this guy that was just a client here a week ago. And she looked me in the eye and says, Ben, the day that you put this before your program is the day that this isn't the place for you to work. And she said, because you brought this to me, that's why we want you working here. Mm-hmm. And she said, you always put that first. You always put your program before this. And that is exactly why we want you working here. You know, it's I have it is a slippery slope though.
Yeah.
You know, you see people, their ego, and we don't have all the answers. We have our experience. We also have our opinions, like, and we talk about some controversial stuff. Suboxone came up. I do like the way that Tara talked about, like, hey, if you're living a meaningful life on Suboxone, I'm all about it. I feel the same exact way. At the same time, like, you've heard the podcast 100 times, I believe abstinence-based is the best way to go. But at the same time, like, who am I to judge somebody's recovery, tell them whether or not they're in recovery? I'm not allowed to call somebody an alcoholic or an addict. That has to be self-diagnosed, so it all applies. Like, and if ego becomes the reason that I'm showing up to these meetings and sharing, and it's not about helping the next person, I'm totally screwed.
And that's why I don't share. I get asked quite frequently because here in South Florida, AA is more predominant here. And I don't work in an AA program. I work in an NA program. And so I feel like when people ask me to share at an AA meeting, if I were to say yes, that's me sharing mess. That's me not sharing a solution that AA and Bill W have set out. I don't know that solution. I know the spiritual principles behind the 12 steps, and I can share freely on that. But if I shared for that reason, great. But I also want to respect tradition, and I also don't want to have to censor what I share. So I feel like it's out of ego, right? Mm-hmm. I just want to go on tour. I just want to share everywhere. And it's like today, I didn't want to share, but I was asked to be of service, so I do.
And I will say this, though, too, like, on the other end of this, and this is more directed at you, Tara, like, we, just to let you know, like, we have genuinely helped people, got them on their way as a result of this podcast. People that would not step foot into a 12-step room, send Tom or I an email or call, and eventually end up in a 12-step room. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, so, and like I was saying earlier, social media has changed the world.
Yeah.
Like, it is controversial, don't get me wrong. I still have my questions about it and wondering what's right, what's not right, what's ego, what's not ego.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer, though, to look at that. Like, that's why it's so important to take a daily inventory of yourself, your motives. What are you doing with this? You know, it's...
Well, I think, too, you know, it's one of those things that as human beings, there is a level of selfishness in just about everything that we do. And, you know, I can't sit here and say that there's a level of selfishness within this podcast, you know, because of, I like this. I like
your ritual,
the creativeness of it. You know, it helps me, you know, I guess express that in a way. And I don't know in any other arena that I would be able to do this type of work or message that would be as effective, because this is what I've known for the vast majority of my adult life. You know, I got sober at 26 years old, and if I wanted to podcast about something prior 26, it would be X-rated, you know, type stuff, you know, and it's just not... But kind of going like to what Ben says, there is a level of selfishness too, because when we do get those emails and we do get the phone calls from the parents and the loved ones and the people that do need the help, and we do get them the help, it feels good.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and I think that that's okay. You know, it is. But I like what you said, and I had never thought about that up until this point of... We have a lot of expectations on ourselves placed upon us by ourselves. You know, we did this. And, you know, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I don't know. I mean, the future will only be able to tell, but yeah, I always learn something from...
Tom looks so enlightened right now, like the sparkle in his eyes. Something just happened weird.
I don't know. That's good lighting. Yeah. Well, Tara, listen, we're out of time. it's been almost an hour, and a couple banger podcasts passed.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was a pleasure having you on. And, again, I don't know you that well, just from, what hearing you in conversation with, my closest core of people, and, the message that you share with people, and kind of just the way that you present and stuff is definitely somebody that, if a female that wants to get clean and sober could model themselves after what you've done, and I mean that. And again, I don't know you that well. I would like to meet your husband, because he sounds like the bionic,
He's the easy one to like. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. You'll get along just
Can
fine.
I tell a funny real quick?
Go.
So during the podcast, Tara said he had 54 days and was only good to look at. Adam, if you're listening, I just want to let you know I think you're beautiful inside and out. I'm beating her to it.
That was weird.
I know.
There's
right?
a bromance going on there,
Yeah.
but
No, he's a good dude.
he's a good man.
He really is.
He's a good man. And if any woman called me at 2 a.m. and said, I need help, I'd be there in a heartbeat if I could be there. Adam's the same way. And really, even a guy, if a guy feels more comfortable, I'd say, great, I'll be there, but my husband's coming with me.
Right.
Yeah,
of course.
Just to throw it out there, this is my perspective of how she's tied in and helpful. The way that I met Tara and Adam, they showed up to my kids' football game just as a result of being part of the fellowship. Like I randomly meet them. Blake introduced me on the sideline. Blake was coaching with us. Blake was in recovery, and it was just like, oh, they're here to support. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then, it's just cool how that works out. Like, It wasn't even in the rooms, but it was all through recovery. I'm like, who are these random people showing up?
Why do they want to take an interest in my kid? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what we were taught.
But that's what recovery does.
Yeah, it sure does. You make some of the most meaningful relationships inside the rooms.
I don't have any others really anymore.
Yeah. Ben, any final thoughts?
I'm glad Tara came on. It was a God thing. Like, I was walking around upstairs, like Tom's downstairs moaning and groaning. We got to get podcast done before the holidays. And I was thinking in my head, I wish someone could just drop in right now. And you literally called me 3 seconds later about that weightlifting belt. And I'm like, can you just come now? Okay.
It was more begrudging. I haven't. But thank you both for allowing
Told
me
us
to be
she-
of service.
Said she hadn't brushed her teeth.
Yeah, I
So
did.
I'm like,
I
don't
did.
worry, they can't smell it on camera.
Yeah. So if you're looking at the oil slicks right now, I apologize. But we're here.
All right. Well, thanks, Tara, for coming on. And that is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to leave us a comment, maybe a review, and share it with somebody. Share it with maybe a woman that is in your life that might need this message. And in the end, if you need any help, direction, or guidance, or you just want to talk, you can email myself, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com, and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. We're going to ask you for a phone number. You can't have meaningful conversation over email. It's impossible. So we're going to want to talk to you over the phone, and hopefully we can help you turn
I'm going to screw this up. Your mess into your message? Oh. I'll keep coming back.
your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.